note on page 36 of Dr. Bragan's report.
Your Honor, can we approach?
No.
And if the court will hear me,
Yes.
I'm going to object to defense referencing specific items in a report from an expert who I wasn't able to cross-examine. The report has been stipulated over my objection and is submitted.
I have noted your objection.
Again, Your Honor, on page 36 of Dr. Bragan's report, he refers to the study of the adverse drug effects reported over a 5-year period for Zoloft, beginning in January of 2013. For individuals who were 17 or 18, the total count of homicide-related acts was 56. The total count of homicidal ideation is 52. The total count for physical assaults are 9. And the total count for violence-related symptoms is 8. Dr. Bragan also referenced on page 39 of his report that Zoloft leads to increased apathy and indifference. Why is that significant in this case? Because there have been a number of reported statements to law enforcement from Gavon's friends, through the doctor who prepared the report from Summit Psychodiagnostic Center, that Gavon did not show remorse, that Gavon did not show any empathy to people, and that Gavon did not show any signs of pain or mourning when his grandfather passed in March of 2018. Well, in March of 2018, that's when Gavon was on Zoloft and had been on Zoloft for 2 months. 2 months at 75 milligrams a day when he should not have been prescribed Zoloft to begin with. So the fact that Zoloft can lead to indifference or apathy is an important factor for this court to consider, because Gavon was exhibiting those symptoms during the time he was taking the medicine. On page 41 of Dr. Bragan's report, he again talks about Zoloft causing people to have increased obsessions with harming himself or herself and others. And we saw that happening with Gavon. Now, I know the state has argued, well, he had this journal in January 19th, before he started Zoloft, where he wrote these skits or these book reports on serial killers. Well, Your Honor, if you go to any Barnes & Noble right now, you are going to find an entire aisle where it is mystery novels, where authors sit all day and type books about murders, about bodies, and about heinous crimes. The mere fact that somebody at some point in their life wrote a book report about a serial killer does not equate with that person being irreparably corrupt or broken and unable to be salvaged at any point. This is a young man who was writing book reports, and the state is using that to paint him as something evil, but that is not what happened in this case. Dr. Bragan again noted on page 43 of his report that had Gavon not been prescribed the Zoloft, the risk of physical violence would have been greatly reduced. Had the parents been fully informed of the risks, again, the risk of violence would have been greatly reduced. Had Gavon been prescribed a mood stabilizer in conjunction with Zoloft, that the risk of violence would have been greatly reduced. It is significant to note, despite the state's assertion that Gavon had a lengthy criminal record, that he had no acts of violence in his background prior to him being prescribed Zoloft. His criminal record as a juvenile consisted of criminal mischief, criminal damaging, breaking and entering, and theft. I think it is important for the court to take into consideration some of the factors identified in Division E of Revised Code Section 2929.11. Primarily, whether the offense was committed under circumstances not likely to reoccur. Gavon was tritated off of Zoloft. The Zoloft is no longer in his system, and without the Zoloft, there is less likelihood of Gavon engaging in violent criminal acts again in the future. There have been no write-ups at the JDC of Gavon engaged in acts of violence. There have been no write-ups at the adult jail of Gavon engaged in acts of violence. The state has painted this crime scene as one where Gavon stalked Mrs. Douglas. That is not accurate. There is nothing in the police report to indicate that she was stalked. What the police report shows, what Gavon's statement to law enforcement shows, is that he went into her house, he did videotape her while she was sleeping on the couch, and when he turned to leave, he bumped a chair, and she was startled awake. What Gavon told law enforcement in an interview that was recorded and played for this court previously is that once she was startled awake, she reached for the phone and he tried to stop her from grabbing that phone. He also told law enforcement in that recorded interview that he was trying to stop her by putting his hands over her mouth, and before he realized that it was too late to help her, she was gone. Now, that is not somebody who stalked his prey. That is not somebody who premeditated and planned and calculated this crime. That is a young man who got in over his head. And when he realized what he had done, he hit her body. That is no different than a child who is engaged in activity in the home, afraid of getting caught, hiding something that may have been broken. Now, the crime itself is horrendous. A life was taken. I'm not minimizing that. But the act of hiding that body was an impulsive act of a juvenile offender. It was not the conduct of a planned, calculated murderer. You've heard the state argue that she was beaten and she was brutalized. Well, it's significant to look at the coroner's report, because the coroner's report indicates that cause of death was strangulation. There's no indication of brutalization as a cause of death in the coroner's report. It's also important to note that the coroner's report indicates that there was very little blood effusion, and I hope I'm saying that word right, around any injuries. That is significant, because if the body were alive, if the heart were beating, there would be blood circulating and blood pulling into the areas that are damaged. The fact that there's very little blood signifies that that happened post-mortem. So what happened post-mortem? She was shoved in a closet and she was hidden. That's how the injuries to the jaw happened. That's how the bruising to the body happened. The state has argued the sex acts are horrific. But Gavon is a child who was victimized at age 7. He himself was a victim of sexual abuse. And as Dr. Jones indicated, children of sexual abuse often act out sexually. I can't explain, nor can Gavon, why he did what he did to the body after. He was asked that question by law enforcement. He was asked that question during his interviews with Dr. Bragan and with Dr. Jones. And he cannot explain what happened. Now, children are constitutionally and developmentally different from adults. And so his age is a factor that you must consider. And as Dr. Jones testified to earlier, children are not fully developed in their brain development until well beyond age 18, which is the normal adult age under the law. That brain development is not complete until about age 25. Why is that significant? Because Gavon, as a 17-year-old boy, can engage in treatment. He can engage in programming that is available through the Department of Rehabilitation and Correction, and he could benefit from those things. Those are suggestions that were made by Dr. Jones for a course of treatment for this young man. And she noted that he was a guarded person, but not the worst. She indicated that his prognosis was not poor. She did not indicate that there wasn't a chance he could improve. She simply indicated that there was a guarded prognosis. So this depends on Gavon. This depends on this young man seated to my right. What have we heard from the lay minister who's been working with him? That Gavon is seeking out change. Gavon is seeking the Lord. Gavon has already expressed his desires to engage in educational programming. That was testified to by Dr. Jones. When you are determining what sentence is appropriate in this case, I refer the court again to the U.S. Supreme Court decisions, the Miller versus Alabama case. Children who are going to be sentenced to life without the eligibility of parole, that should be saved for the worst offenders. Children who are irreparably corrupt or broken, who cannot be saved. There has been nothing presented by the psychiatric evidence to indicate that this young man is not capable of being saved. This young man, through programming available, through the basic course of maturity, can change. He is only 17 years of age. He has demonstrated through his successful completion of probation in the past that he can follow rules and that he is capable of adhering to the law. And he was supervised by the probation department of the juvenile court and terminated successfully from that probation. This is a case, Your Honor, that has drawn a lot of media attention. This is a case where public opinion is plentiful, based on the media reports, based on press conferences held earlier in the years. And as a sentencing judge, you must base your decision free of those outside influences. The proper sentence in this case may not be the one that is most popular with the outside community. It may not be the one that is popular or approved by the state of Ohio. But due to his youth and the fact that Gavon Ramsay is not irreparably corrupt or broken, life without parole is not the proper sentence in this case. Concurrent sentences in this case will not demean the seriousness of the offense, and a 20-year to life sentence will not demean the seriousness of these offenses. This system, this criminal justice system, is about justice. And I submit to you that 20 years to life is a just sentence.
Mr. Ramsay, what would you like to say on your own behalf?
I wrote this down because I knew I wouldn't I'm so sorry for what I did. And I constantly live in regret and shame because of it. I wish I had the words to express how sorry I really am.
Thank you. The court will be in recess for approximately 9 minutes. I want to look over my notes. I want to look over the report of Dr. Bregan, pre-sentence investigation, and the report of the psychodiagnostic clinic, and I will be back out at 10 till 6.